Topic of the day is, should you flip whiskey? Hey guys, Take here. Thanks for joining me again, better known as Jay. I'm from whiskeyraiders.com, also co-host of Weekly Whiskey. Check out some of our other videos, but it's great to have you back. Today, I've got a fun one. This is kind of a controversial one. I think it'll probably be a little bit spicy. I get emails about this all the time. People ask me on Instagram, Reddit. I've seen it all at this point, so I figured I would take a moment to talk about it. So, topic of the day is, should you flip whiskey? So for those of you who might be new to bourbon, it's a very common practice, what's known as flipping, or better known as buying and reselling on the gray market, the black market, the secondary market. All of those things. Secondary market typically is a Facebook group or a private group or something where you buy a product for one price and resell it for a higher retail price, basically. So, if you buy, for instance, a Blanton's for $55 and resell it for $199 on Facebook, that is what folks would consider a flip or flipping. So why is it so hot? Why do people care about it so much? Well, initially, there's people who flip maybe a little bit. There's people who flip a lot. There's some people who are believed to basically make their entire, income off of flipping bourbon. So, that's pretty significant. You'd have to flip a lot of whiskey to make 40, 50, 70, whatever a stable income for the place that you live is. So the big concern is that people think that if they can't find a whiskey locally, that whiskey is probably being bought up by the flippers, people who only exist to buy and resell bourbon. So if you can't find that Wild Turkey, you can't find that Buffalo Trace, you can't find that Willet, it's very easy to think that perhaps everybody is just buying it to resell it instead. So that's generally the practice of flipping. No, it's not legal. You're not allowed to buy and resell whiskey on Facebook. That is super, super not legal, but typically the authorities don't chase down people who are doing it. It's kind of small time, but it's still definitely not within the law. So that's something to consider if you're ever tempted by it. However, my opinion on it is a little bit, I would say, I'm kind of in the middle, right? Obviously, I run the Bourbon single barrel program where I don't allow people to flip bottles. That's because the demand outpaces the supply about 95% of the time for a barrel. So it'd be wrong for me to let someone buy a bottle for retail price, resell it for twice, what it costs them to make a buck, when people on the other side wanted the barrel and couldn't get it. So I ban it. Clearly, I'm against flipping in that regard. So the real problem is serial flippers. So people who are career resellers. These are people who only exist to take bourbon and resell it. And for instance, I think that's the only kind of flipping that I'm super against, because it goes against what the community is about. It goes against the whole point of buying and selling bourbon, right? You should buy something that you want to drink. You should let retailers sell whiskey to whoever, would potentially like to get it. Of course, there's always going to be a supply and demand problem for big limited editions, but if you're letting people, basically buy all of your allocations of a certain product and you suspect that they're just reselling them, that does nothing good for your general customer base. So I'm against those types of people who buy up way more than they would ever drink, people who might not even enjoy whiskey. Like, there are people at this point who buy whiskey who are like, oh, I don't drink alcohol, or, I just don't even like it, but hey, free money is free money. And that's where I think the big root of the secondary problem is. Obviously, there's a legal aspect, but people do illegal stuff all the time. This isn't, a violent crime, but I'm against it. First off, it's illegal. Second, if you're depriving others because you're buying way more than your fair share or way more than you ever hope to drink, that's hugely problematic. I consider that predatory. I think that's what we call, bad for the industry. It's bad for the community, bad for whiskey. So that's kind of my general perspective. A lot of times people say, hey, I bought this thing. I really intended to drink it, but, my buddy offered me more than I would ever hope to enjoy it. He really, really wants it. He's offering me money at a private sale. These are edge cases, right? Or like, hey, I bought this, I intended to drink it, but, my kid got hurt, got to pay for this bill, or my car stopped working. Take it case by case. If you have to flip something once because it's some life or death scenario, I think that that's a little bit different than the career, flippers. But at the same time, maybe if you're, if you buy whiskey that you're not going to get around to drinking, kind of consider like, hey, should I be buying this much whiskey in the first place? Like, is this a really smart choice? Overall, it kind of is a massive gray area. That's my opinion on it. Some people have really hard opinions on it. Some people are kind of whatever, Personally, I think that if you buy something and you thought that like, hey, I really want to drink this, but then something comes out a couple of weeks later and your friend gets it and you don't, and he wants to provide an even swap, like that to me, that's bourbon karma. That's the bourbon community. Like that is helping a friend out, as long as you're both mutually, I hate to say winning, but as long as you're both mutually satisfied, I think that that's quite a bit different than, knowing that your local Kroger is going to stock 12 blends at 801 and you buying all 12 and then selling all 12 of them on Facebook in the parking lot. So that's my, I wouldn't call it a hot take. I think it's pretty level-headed. I think it's pretty neutral, but people get really, really fired up when you talk about flipping and secondary, and then you have the whole tater discussion and aspect. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on flipping whiskey? Go ahead and leave me a note in the comments. I would love to hear what you think. Like, obviously, people ask me questions all the time. I don't hear as much opinion on it as you might expect I would. So looking forward to hearing your opinion. Drop me a comment and share this with a whiskey friend that you know. If you maybe have friends who flip a lot of bottles and are trying to give them a little nudge, you can send them this video instead. So thanks for watching, guys. I am Jay, better known as Take, from WhiskeyRaiders.com and co-host here at Weekly Whiskey. Thanks for checking us out, and I will see you in the next video.